Okay. I have a dishwasher going, so it might be a little noisy. Sorry about that. It's going to be annoying, but whatever. Inside Out 2 crossed 1 billion in worldwide box office sales. That's really big, making it the first movie of the year to reach the milestone. It's the fastest animated picture to gross 1 billion. No kidding. Reaching the marker in 19 days, according to Disney. So they think it's faster than Mario? I'd be curious about that. I think Mario made ridiculous money. Of course, Disney would just make crap up, make them sound good. Um, there's nothing. I mean, I don't know what news needs to happen here. If there's any news that needs to happen, there's really not much to say right now about GME. I still don't know if it's gonna break out or cross down, and I don't really care that much. So right now, I just feel like it's. I think it might be done. I think that might be it. It's like draining my dishwasher. I'm so annoyed by it. I thought it was gonna be done by now. Taking a little long. So this is a support level. It needs to come back above at 20. What is that number? 2360s. So we'll see. I'm surprised AMC just kind of kept going. We got a little pullback. You know, I watched it earlier. I thought it might come up to 501 and then come back down. I'm a little concerned because we're still advancing and we're on a bit of weakness. On like lower time frames, it's okay, but like you can advance with this kind of junk as long as you're not on higher time frames. So 15-minute, it's still like overbought. The volume here isn't exactly like amazing. It's not horrible. We got a little volume pop earlier. Yeah, a little. I want to see more. It still looks like a topping action potentially before a pullback. So in theory, if it was to pull back here, okay, mouse, what are you doing? Being dumb. Why is it acting like this? Mouse is like wigging out. Oh my goodness, what just happened? Some kind of glitch, the Matrix. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a chill out to back to 5. I'm just nervous. It's not. Okay, so on the big picture, this is support. We looked at it earlier. This is support at the big 4-hour 180. It's also a very important long-term support for other reasons that I'm not going to like go into again. I already kind of talked about it this morning. So most of you guys are probably here for the morning stream at this point. I'm going to assume that that's the case. I got to be honest though, I don't really like what's going on right now. You guys are probably going to not like that I say that. If it breaks to the upside, like we talked about before, I think we would probably go from 480 up to 530 pretty quick. 480 to 550 pretty quick. So why do I have a bad feeling about it? I think it's a bad feeling because I feel like we didn't really make a solid bottom here at 481. We didn't have a big picture pullback though. There's no macro pullback. It's all like minor stuff, like the drop down this morning. I don't like that the indicators are overbought on lower time frames. Yeah, even up to like 30 minutes. Even up to an hour, it's overbought. This looks like crap to me. Yeah, I think this is kind of garbage, a garbage way to set it up. So this is what it appears to me to be, is like an advancement on weakness with very little volume involved. And I just can't imagine this not coming back down. See about 4 hour, maybe 4 hour and daily are fine. Yeah, even on 4 hour, it's like, my presumption would be that you would have some kind of a check back test here. It's like a rising. I mean, it's a cross, but then you need to come back down to check. Y'all are like, dude, just let it be, man. It's got plenty of room on the 4 hour. You don't need to be anything bad. Okay, so on low time frames, an indicator can be pretty oversold, and it'd be fine. On higher time frames like the daily, you don't really want to see that. But then again, like these bigger turns here didn't really happen. Like this big turn at the top when we were up at 6, that didn't happen because the daily was overbought. The daily wasn't overbought. You know, it happened when we extended above the moving average quite a bit. So it looks like we would have a little more leg room. We still need to, I think we're going to come back down. I just can't unsee it. This looks weak as all get out. Sorry, y'all. I hate to be a buzzkill, but it's very difficult for me to imagine this just rocketing from here. If we had pulled back to 482 first, after we talked this morning, I think your indicators would have flattened out a little more, and I would have been more comfortable with the idea of a run-up. But as it stands, it just looks like we're approaching this really important creek cross with relative weakness. Like, everything up to like, what I mean, like the 2 hour? Yeah, everything up to the 2 hour is overbought. I know. I'm aware of like the implication that it really doesn't matter. Like these indicators don't mean a whole lot if you're ready to move. Obviously on the higher time frames, you can tell that, for example, like on the, this thing is wigging out. I'm really irritating with my mouse right now. I'm getting ticked off, sorry. It's happened like 3 times in a row. I'm over it. I'm over it. No, it's still not. I'm not going to say it's good unless it's good. It's not good. I don't care. I'm not going to make excuses for it. I'm fully aware that if the higher indicators are not oversold or overbought or oversold, it doesn't really mean a lot. I mean, you can run on fumes, I guess, but this is not really what I want to see here. It's probably just shorts covering, like a little bit of buying pressure to kind of squeeze out some shorts, but I don't see support. Like, I just don't see it. One candle on the 2 hour, that's it. I don't know. One little backup candle, you can't even see it on the 4 hour. RSI is already overbought up to 2 hours. You're approaching an important upward momentum creek here. Just be realistic, you know. Dang it, Booksy. Why can't you just tell me that we're running? I'm not saying it's not possible. There's always possibility in the market of some kind of a good run, but like all things considered, the fact that we're so overcooked just makes me feel like we're in need of a bigger pullback down. It may be that we don't go back to 484. We may only go back to like 5, you know. And since higher indicators still have some room, maybe there is going to be like a squeeze moment where we go up to like 550 really fast. you don't really need a lot to get back through the range when if you're coming through strength, but this doesn't look, I don't know what this is, guys. This looks like a hot turd to me. Maybe it's supposed to look that way. Maybe we're supposed to be casting doubt on a move right now. And once it gets to a certain level, we'll see a buy-in. I just have to be honest about it. You're like, no, you don't. Just tell me it's running. Look, you can see with your eyes it's moving up. You don't need someone else to tell you the price is moving up. What I am going to be concerned with is whether or not it's in a good place to have a big run. And I'm sorry, but like all the indicators being like almost up to the higher time frames being overdone is not a good place for a run. Like we started off in May, we were down at like 41, you know. And frankly, if you look at the positioning of where we would be going, that would be like us just crossing this creek and heading up, you know. For us to be already at the top, I don't know about that. You're already squeezing out shorts. That's in the nature of this inversion here on the wave. There's no doubt in my mind that's happening. It's more about the principles of it. Maybe it won't matter. Maybe all that matters is getting to the price targets. And, you know, if I didn't know anything about RSI and wasn't looking at it, I probably wouldn't care about it, right? We'd just be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, on the 4 hour, on the daily, there's plenty of space. There's plenty of space. So that's going to be the bullish argument here. But I'm going to contest that everything underneath the 4 hour looks like garbage to me right now. Sorry. It's just low volume, like second push here on this push. There's a lower volume second push. It's not that it can't run. It's just that where is it finding support? You know, like it found support above 504, which is great. So that's back on the top of this level. My expectation would be at this point that you'd probably run up above, because it found support here and you have a kind of an advancement, is that the next move would have to come up pretty far. I mean, you'd have to come above 518. I really think at this point you're looking at that 520. That's kind of the liquid center. So that's the next big target. I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like a rising cat ear. So what I see here is I see a double top right here, an M cross. I see another M down bottom. You can see it clear as mud right there. And then you get another one up top. So it's a rising accumulative action still. But normally what would happen is that you'd get a reversion at the top. Not necessarily a reversal, just a turn back down to chill out. That's definitely what that is. So if I had to venture a guess, and I'm on the 30 minute, I would say it's going down to like the 50 down here. I feel pretty confident in saying that. So maybe we'll get a little squeeze at the end here. Maybe it'll push us up high, and then that reversal will be back down to 516. But if you don't breach 520, I think a reversal is going to come pretty low. I just don't see it any other way. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Y'all are like, Booksy, you suck. You're my least favorite. I don't know why I listen to you. You make everything not fun. Look, there's nothing else that's particularly wrong with this setup. It's just in need of a chill out. So if you're getting angry, I just think it needs to chill out. Like, I don't think it's a matter of, oh, it's not bullish. That's not the question here. It's not. That's a wedge, dude. So it could break upward through a wedge. That's definitely like a wedging action. So what's the wedge here? Yeah, we'd have to make a pretty big leap. So this either falls in a category of like an upward breakout on a wedge where you get a really big extension up and then the pullback can kind of rest high, or it's going to dump the other way. And you're probably going to get a 61%, 62% retracement. So if this thing exhausts itself, this is going like low. I know it stinks, but let's go back to 460. It kind of follows though, because if you look at where that would go here, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, you never know. I'm just saying, it looks overcooked. It looks like a rising wedge. There's really only two places that I would place it on a retracement. One is to what maybe we call a parallel, which is basically back down to 484. That's ideal. So that looks really close to what we want. The other is a drop all the way down to, I think, that connector down there, which is pretty low. Oh, I bet that's like a 50-50 move too, around the middle. The other way. It's okay. It's just the golden pocket. It wouldn't be like a bad thing. It'd just be a thing. It's easy to see how that could happen though. I mean, it's a deep retracement, but it also comes back and checks this ascending move and it checks the downward creek. So this is not a good place to run out of steam. So I'm seeing like two, this is still the most important place. I'm seeing two possibilities. That's definitely a wedging action, no doubt about it. So went from one extreme to the other. Everybody's like, it's going to 553. Look, I have no doubt that if it can breach the gap that, or breach the level it's currently on, which is the rising wedge, if it goes to the upside, you're kind of in the place where it creates a little bit of an S curve. Like there's a secondary option for S curves on rising wedges. A lot of times that does not happen, so you get the reversal. But if it breaks upward on a rising wedge, it becomes essentially like an S curve target. This is fairly universal. It's not just AMC. Usually it's pretty obvious where that is. So in this case, if the S curve is going around that kind of that 50-50 swing at 484, this should go up to 540, which makes sense. It would basically head towards the top of the previous range. 532 is the previous top area. That's like the danger zone for us. But this whole section would be at play. But I'm just being straightforward. Like, you don't have to agree with me. It's fine. My targets have been fairly good, you know. This have all been met. This was met. Then this has been met. 515. I delete a lot of my stuff, but if you had come on yesterday, you would have seen chop right up here above 505. Once we get there, I don't want to just like keep it there, so I just get rid of it. And so far, it's been fairly on point, so there's no doubt in my mind this looks like a crazy weak advancement. So unless you see like some kind of a squeezing buy-in here and it just rips up, then this pullback is going to take you back down to 485 or 463. It just is. And I'm not positive about how fast that goes, but I would say by the looks of it, unless that catches early, this could be that Friday into Monday kind of thing. How could I flip to being so bearish all of a sudden? I wouldn't be this way if we had come back down earlier. In extended trading hours, it's a channel, not a wedge. I mean, like I said, I don't doubt it, but that there's a possibility it goes the other way. But I just think that, I mean, in some ways it doesn't matter. Like, I could probably illustrate this at 45 degrees instead of showing the wedge, and that would give you a better sense of like possibility here for like a channel. Just use the lower one and see if that works, and just drop it down and be like, no, it's not a wedge, it's a whatever, you know. The problem with this is that I'm using, like I could use these two right here and say, nah, it's just a channel, you know. And again, that's the breakout target anyways, so does it really matter? No, not really. Not trying to be a jerk, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's the same target regardless. It's still like that 540 region if it goes up or down. So, or if it's a wedge or not. So if this is a channel and not a wedge, then you could interpret this as like a channel crossing. We could do like a channel target. It's probably gonna be the same target right here. It's kind of a weird channel though, if it is one. My thing is always like looking at two things, like things in combination with each other, right? So a cat ear can technically break to the upside on that second ear. It's not like the second ear is always bearish and always comes back down. It doesn't. But even locally, if this were to advance and then have even a minor pullback, you'd probably see the pullback in the price. You know, typically this is a little weird to talk about because it's kind of mysterious. But typically the second ear is where you get the breakout. You know, and this, so far, the M cross has been great. But that's the thing, is like, that doesn't mean that you don't have a backup. So like, if we're advancing, I'm just going to draw it over to the side. If we're advancing here and we did this, like we hit this guy, this is kind of what happened to GME in some ways, and we don't advance, then what usually happens is that you get kind of a, like a bearish distributive action, and then you go down, right? And you end up going really low to some creek. When you do cross, instead you get what we're seeing here, which is you get a rising advancement. So again, I'm not saying it's bearish overall. I'm saying that typically, like, this is what happens if the pattern is bullish. You end up rising up, and the M shape, if you want to call it that, goes upward. That's the wave cross. So both of them have the same general shape, and that's what I'm seeing here and here, but one of them jumps the creek and the other doesn't. However, in every example that I've seen like this, this is almost always like a parabolic move, and then you still end up with like a sideways action and some kind of a backup to a creek before you advance. If you don't believe me, go look at the January move and observe the M cross up over the creek and how it did this topping action in like a narrowing wedge. And that is universally the case for these kinds of moves up. So I think this early buy-in, I think I may have misread it as this is the big, this was it from basically 435 up to 489. I think what we experienced is a double creek cross, and both of them created an M-shaped cross. And so I read the first one as the finishing action, but it was really just the first jump. And then what we basically have after that is, so what I'm saying is like we got to jump early on a creek. Ignore the lines down here. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. So basically there's like a double, there's one M down here, right? 1, 2, and then that finishes the first cross. And then you've got a bigger one set up, well, going all up 1, down, 2, down. I guess if I could mentally do some gymnastics and make it look more bullish, but I don't feel it needs it. Like even if it pushed up here high, it'd still be that case where you've made a big advancement on weakness, and you'd still need to, on some relative weakness, not overall, you'd still need to back up. There shouldn't be anything wrong with us coming back down and checking like a support. I don't think it necessarily needs to go super low. This could be an opportunity for some sideways chop with a later drop, you know. This could kind of build out off to the side and then kind of break down over here. So it doesn't matter if it goes up or not. Whatever you guys want to see happen might happen. But you would maybe say either like this or like this. Either one makes sense to me. Because there's just very few times where this continues to advance like parabolically like that. So regardless of what you think about the bigger picture, just take a look at this and just read it as a... Ignore the fact that there could be... Maybe there's not a wedge, right? I'm going to put... I'm sorry, I don't know why I deleted that marker, but I'm going to add it back. I'm going to put a... So this is the golden pocket for this advancement. But I'm going to like just show you this. So here you have what I think constitutes a narrowing range, right? So again, regardless of what you believe about the bigger picture, that to me still looks like a narrowing. So you're going in a parabolic motion upward. Some of y'all are like, yeah, but it does that right before it moves. Usually, but then there's usually like a support, and then you drive the price ridiculously fast, ridiculously high. And typically, once we get to this kind of narrowing action, you're peaking, you know. So we don't want to do that. We want this creek jump to happen and then to come find support. I don't want to just like up thrust and then slide back really low. Just don't want to do that. What if it's a change of character and it's bullish? You're not really like, I don't think people understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to try to say it again. I don't like that it's trying to advance, well, every indicator up to, on the RSI, every indicator up to like 4 hours is weak. It doesn't really have to go any farther than that. So it could be that you don't agree that that matters and that the 4 hour and the daily are the only one that matters. And I don't disagree. And it could be that we get this giant pump here up to 6 and then we cool off for a couple days up into 5s. That's also possible, you know, and those indicators would cool pretty rapidly. But on the whole, just observing here as a basic principle, this never comes this high and doesn't have a pullback. So unless we're about to rip like a few 100% in like 2 days, which I guess is somewhat what my thesis was earlier, then it almost demands your attention for retracement. What I'm suggesting is we retrace back down to like the 50 and we chop for a little bit. And that to me is either a pullback to 484, which I would like to see on the higher time frames. I can't see it on the higher time frames. Or a pullback really low to like 460s again. I don't want to go there, but it's possible. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to keep beating that horse to death. If you don't get it, if you think I'm being bearish, then whatever. I'm trying to be a jerk about it. Geez, Booksy, just want you to explain yourself. I'm not being bearish by saying it needs to pull back. That's not bearish. Bullishness is wanting to see a good move setup so that you can have continuation. I don't want to get up to $6 and have our 4-hour be overbought already, and 1 hour, you know what I mean, and daily be overbought. Like, that's not what I want. This is kind of like a snowball effect, right? What I'm seeing in the patterning is simply that layup where you have M shape 1 and then M shape 2, and usually after that you get a pullback. So this is my TA. If you don't like it, too bad. I'm not interested in telling you to sell or do anything like that. That's not my goal here. Like, I still think it's possible we can get a big rip to like the top area at like 540. I had mentioned previously that if we found support on 483, we probably would not spend a whole lot of time in this middle because we've already traded it. I also mentioned previously that like I was pretty confident we were going to kind of push right up to the 530s. I'm looking at 540s right now because it's a clean 50-50 sweep across this creek. However, I did not expect to get there with overblown indicators like they are on every time frame up to like 2 hours and 3 hours. So it's not inconceivable for me that I would say that this could have a healthy pullback. And maybe at this point, it means just coming back down to 5 and chilling out for an afternoon or chilling out in the morning or whatever. Some of you are like, well, I don't care, man. I just want it to like rip. Okay. That kind of stuff hurts us later, so I'd rather not. It really isn't about like bullish or bearish. It's more about the health of the move. My ultimate goal, if I were to say like what do I want to have happen? In one part I've been talking about how it'd be really cool to kind of see the patterns that I built out really play out on a big move. Of course, everybody wants to win in some regard. And see that completion, and especially if it's something that you were able to manage to predict with technical analysis. It's a big feather in your cap, I suppose. It makes you feel good. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not doing it to gloat or anything, just for my own personal growth. Like to say, yeah, I was able to pretty accurately pinpoint it, even to like the timing of it. That would be awesome, because that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to do. So of course that would be a great thing to have happen, but if I'm being honest, like I would rather, if it's between the timing and health, I'd rather it be healthy than me have like perfect timing. I'd rather see it build the support it needs and then advance and be like a day late or something than just rip up there with no health, because that tells me like there's an inherent weakness to that move. If it's just shorts covering that's getting you to the top, that's fine, but then what, you know? You really want to see that operators are building a strong support. Do I think they've done that? Well, arguably, yeah. I think this whole area could be constituted as support, but locally, we've got this problem that we've been dealing with, which is this very oppressive creek. We've managed to jump the first one and then the second one, but neither of them really have much ado. Like, we didn't spend a lot of time testing this one. We didn't spend a lot of time testing this one. If we suddenly made an advancement up to 532, I'm obviously not going to advocate for coming back down. That would be really bad. If we made an advancement up to 550 and started sliding, that would be bad, in my opinion. I don't want to go up here and then slide all the way back down to these creek tests. So now is the time. And I really want support on 485. And it would be much better, in my opinion, to get that support now on the higher time frames than to take off and then see that weakness happen to play out later. Your operators don't typically leave stones uncovered, or leave stones not uncovered, if that makes sense, when they're trying to leave an area. There's usually a very good concentrated effort to sort of check all the boxes if you're not going to have some kind of immediate return. So it's frustrating. I don't like being in a place where I'm arguing that I want it to come back down. Like, that to me is not a good place for me to be. I'm like mad at myself. Like, please don't be mad. I'm mad. Like, I'm angry that it came up here and just didn't come back down and test. Because to me it looks weak. And I'm like, yeah, seems like there's a pullback in order. This is not where I want to be distributing. I'd rather it have, again, stayed kind of low and come back down. So I guess we'll find out. Maybe we're going to just rock it up to 540. Maybe then we'll chill out the RSI up here for a couple days. This will come back down. I don't know. Maybe it'll go all the way to 6 and we'll chill out up there. Or maybe we'll do it right now. We'll come back to 484. It's not, in some ways it's not that complicated. Draw a retracement. You can see two levels. One's right here on a retracement, 485. The other's down here to 460. There's like a golden pocket and then like a lesser retracement. Both are just basic retracements on this move. So if I saw this U-shaped top anywhere else, like for example, right back here, usually I'm going to think that we're probably going to have a retreat. I'm pretty annoyed. Maybe the design of it is intended to kind of frustrate bulls, to seem like a rug pull. Yeah, okay. What is that? That's a whip around. I wonder if that's the center of the wedge as it was built out here. Probably. Well, I'll tell you this much. It's definitely built to be important. You can see way back here it's significant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This thing goes all the way back to that breakdown at 5.30 when we were up at $5.30. Yeah, this is an important one. We've not yet built support on it. We've failed to hit it as support until this point. Maybe that's the natural retracement to get you to both creeks. Kind of feels that way. Dang it. I don't really care about the top of this anyways. I'm going to get rid of that. And then we're going to look at, let's see here. Yeah. I just like to know if something goes wrong, like where are we going? I don't like being in a position where I'm like figuring it out later. I mean, what do you guys think? Look at it. It's not me making stuff up. It's just me looking at it saying, yeah, that looks like a very likely high probability intersection around Wednesday. 463. Why 463 or 461? Because you needed 463 and 461, Booksy. You said you needed it and we never got it. Screw these guys, man. These dumb operators. I talked about this earlier, coming down to 463. When's that? It was on Thursday and Friday. We never went down that low. We just kind of turned around. Man, I hate operators. Hate's a strong word, but the lack of care is never a thing. It's always intentional. I mean, that to me looks probable. I mean, I remember saying that I thought it was going to come back down to 463, and we never did. And now we have an opportunity to retrace back down there at a golden ratio, which is good. I mean, it's not bearish. It's just, now that we have that opportunity, it's like, well, crap. Because if it takes the opportunity, it's going to be a bloodbath for the next day. Maybe half a day. No, the next day. I think it could go all the way to Wednesday, really. Why, Booksy? Remember the other stuff that you talked about? Isn't it possible that it's just going to do something different than you expect? Can't turn a donkey into a monkey, is what it is. All right. Well, I'll say this much. If it breaks this trend, I'm not bearish on the overall move. I'm bearish on the next couple of days. So you need to hear me out when I say that. It's not because I think that this whole move is bearish or something. That's not it at all. It's simply that it's taken that ridiculous path that it likes to take. I'm going for like a retracement, at least the 786. Maybe more. Look at that. The 1618 gives you right to that place up at 615. There it is. Okay, so again, I know that's not what I said, what I thought was going to happen originally. I get it. Well, not really. I actually did say this. I'm sorry. I'm stabbing myself in the back here, but I'm not. I actually did say this because we talked about how Monday, if it gets stuck here, that you could end up coming back down and basically eat up the whole week. So I'm not going to apologize because I did say this. I said it last week. I said I was really nervous about the timing because if it doesn't go early and it didn't go up, right, until the last second on Friday, I said if it doesn't go up and make that support, we don't see that support build out, then any kind of move to the upside puts you in a danger of basically generating like a hook here. I think this is a 618 retracement probable down to 464. And I think that, unfortunately, based on the volume and the RSI, I think that's what it looks like. You might say, like, maybe this is the time when they rug pull the bears. Maybe. But at least here, if it's mathematically solid, I consider it. So this is mathematically solid. I don't like it going below 480. I'm not saying it has to do that. But either one, I guess, could be fine. They both kind of give you duplicate targets up at 6. But I think this was established to come back down later. I think they're purposely screwing with us right now, making us think it's really bullish. And we're probably going to see it retrace, and then it's going to have a big move, either Monday or Friday or something, or Friday into Monday. You're going to have a big move, like 30% move. Big move back up to the top. I know, does all kinds of messing with all the stuff I've set up. Man, Books, you flip-flop too much. You know, I used to think that. I would be like really critical of myself and be like, man, I hate that because people are going to think you're like wishy-washy or, you know, lukewarm or whatever. But in reality, all I'm doing is reading as the information comes. And if you think that there's a check needed, you don't just like get rid of that idea. If it doesn't check it, it doesn't check it. Now, I'm irritated as anybody else, but when we came up here, we didn't check low. I know it's only a couple pennies. It's not a huge difference, but I think it's important, and I think for some reason we skipped it. And maybe it won't matter, but maybe it will. And if the way this is set up is any indication, it looks like it's going to matter. At least down to 485, maybe to 464. Inverse head and shoulder, yeah, probably, but I would just read it as simply like a backup on a wave. So wave 1 and then 2 come back down 618, and then you get an extension up to 630s for wave 3. And then at that point, after 3, you can have a 4, which could be your SOS, and a 5, which is the breakout. And then you start over again with some kind of a macro move. In order for this to not happen, I need to be proven wrong now. So we would have to see sometime today or early tomorrow, we'd have to see a big move up to 530s and then retrace from there. Does that make sense? I would accept a big move to 530s and a retracement to 520s. Like, you got to get above these levels. This, to me, would be the only other alternative, in my opinion, to downward action right now this week. Because the volume's garbage, the RSI is in the pits. They didn't make the back test here. They didn't make the back test here. Yeah, that's true. If you're in calls this week and this move doesn't advance like now or first thing in the morning, there could be a big rug pull and your calls could get squashed for the week. So be careful. It might go up, guys. I don't want to be like Mr. Pessimistic here. Maybe this is just there because it's designed to kind of get you thinking. Maybe it's there because there's an inherent weakness here, and it's probably a lot of shorts just kind of getting stopped out of their positions. You know, when you go back and you look at the legs down start here at 520. I mean, this is the big one. And it ultimately, that original position opened up on this ear on Friday the 14th. It opens up here at like 540. So logic would say that if every one of these correlates to one on the other side, and I think they do, then this area would be the next one up. And you would expect there to be some kind of a short covering exercise, possibly up to 540. My question at that point is that high enough to prevent you from falling out? My answer is yeah, probably, because if you can get over 540, I don't think there's a lot here that would necessarily be bad. Like at that point, you could probably camp out above 520 and you'd be able to chill out the indicators. And you can see it on my graph. If you just want to look at the chart, that line could be held essentially if you get that bigger push up. So my concern right now is that we don't get it. And maybe we need to come back to 5 and then we pop. But my concern right now is if we don't get it and it breaks down beneath 5, that's the key word, has to break down here. I think this is very probable. So it's a matter of opinion, yes. It's a matter of how you interpret the chart, yes. This is done. This one was absorbed here up to 5. This one's finished. These positions are closed. This is their breadcrumbs that they left going down, right? So all these like walk downs on these iterations on the right, every time they did this little cattier and drop, cattier and drop, cattier and drop. It's the same places you're getting those pops on the other side. It's really typical in terms of the price action to see that. Part of the low volume is that we don't really need to trade this range anymore. So all we're really seeing is kind of the completion of like the buy-in and the completion of the covering. So it's like covering positions and buying in. Somebody's making a lot of money on this push down and ramp up. They got to open a bunch of shorts, cover those shorts, going back up, buy pressure, buying in addition to that. Somebody made a lot of money on that swing. It's very symmetrical. The trajectory in, trajectory out matched. Everything looks good. It's just kind of missing that last leg up to 540. And my concern is the way that the indicators are positioned up to about 2 hours means if you don't get that push and instead you get a drop now, you'd be in deep doo-doo. Because there's a natural pullback here to 464. All right. Now that that's out of the way, let's just be a little more optimistic and watch it. So GME, probably on Sunday yesterday, I probably talked about this not breaking. So we talked about the creek that was around 24 and how that is kind of strong and like it wasn't broken yet, but it didn't come back above 24.84, which really would have been the level I wanted support on. So the ending action was a breakdown. It's just I wasn't sure how low we'd go, and I was saying that I think if it held the creek higher, it'd be better. Well, that didn't happen. It came low. So what I'm imagining now is that we're basically doing what we did over here, where it could not advance. It couldn't advance across the liquid center, and so it drove the price low for some kind of a spring action, and then it reversed back above the liquid center, found support, and then ran. So it's a way of kind of dumping weak hands, buying back in, you're basically trapping some shorts, getting rid of some weak hands, and then buying back in. I think we're seeing something very similar here. My thought was that, and just the way I drew it, you can see it, my thought was that it may come as low as 21.41, which oddly is like the same level that we were at back here. So it would be a previous support. So I think the nosedive was an attempt for that. A little different story because RSI here has plenty of room on the lower time frames. There's a gap above us that goes all the way up to 24.50. Maybe the only problem is still like that the creek hasn't been jumped. So there's still this outer creek that we're still underneath. So what happened previously on GME is in a similar kind of structure is you went low for a spring and it actually jumped the creek really low. So you see how it came all the way down and it jumped it down here at like 17.91. That's more typical. Our situation's a little different because we gapped first, and you can see that advancing just to the gap doesn't actually jump the creek. So it's intentionally set up to give you the gap fill but not jump the creek. So there's going to be an issue here because if we came back up, that's fine, but you've actually not done anything purely in advancement. You've just kind of checked the box, for filling a gap. So there's still risk here. The risk being that frankly, that this could still have like a significant downside. It's still become like a general hook kind of action. This is not impossible. We see this kind of stuff all the time on GME where it drops a range, comes up, looks like it's going to advance, and then it just starts piddling down. So in the event that AMC also has a slide, I'm going to have to say that I think that GME is going to do the same thing. So if AMC, basically, if it doesn't advance here and it breaks down towards 485, I think there'll be a similar motion on GME. You'll fill the gap, maybe to the upside, and I think you're probably going to come back down. Nothing in the market is guaranteed. This could hit a higher low, you know, at 23.12 and find support, or it could come significantly lower, but I wouldn't even bat an eye if it came as low as 21.41. That's what I was trying to say. It really wouldn't be a huge deal. The bigger problem is it needs to jump the creek. So in any case, you want to see it like advance here at some point, either this week or next, and start back up. I do think that the price target's pretty strong. Price target's still the same. It's still like 29.32. This could either happen rapidly or it could happen really slowly. You know, this could be one of those things where, hey, you got it right, Booksy, but it happened like way over here going into Monday, you know, in which case you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? You know, you can't control it. Yeah, so I imagine after it peaks here at the gap, probably, maybe, I mean, maybe it just runs, but I think what's more likely is you're going to hit like 24.50, maybe, you know, hit that gap and then come down. And if you make a higher low, there's a chance that we could just advance early. And if you don't, then you're going to come down, make a new low, and then break out lower. In either case, I still think this is roughly the same target. It's still 29.72. I think that's the target in mind. And I gave a brief kind of outline of why I think that is based on the setup, but also because what was it? Like the fib bounce gives you a very simple trend target here as well. And it makes sense. We never came back and checked this rising trend here. This is one of the more important ones that we left behind. So I think that's the first one to get checked. There's not much else to talk about right now because we're just kind of waiting. We got like 20 minutes left in the day. We might get a big push end of the day, or we might get a big dump end of the day. One or the other. It seems likely. Usually there's like a last minute, 10-minute kind of thing because reasons, I don't know. They say it's usually because of the mutual funds. They buy in the last 15 minutes. The orders come in. I don't know why, but that's what I've heard. And then it could also be on a day like today or even last Friday. This is a change of a quarter, so you could have like a significant amount of orders kind of coming in late. This looks really close to the way I was thinking it might go, so maybe that's positive. I don't know. If this can bottom, we might see a good push. Really close so far. Obviously not this advancement because it didn't bounce here. It fell down. But in terms of the bottom, that's good. Is it already advancing? Are you already going? It might be. It's a big line. Yeah, maybe. It's like sitting on it right now. So that might be it. Maybe we'll get a big end of day pop. GME will fill its gap. AMC will run up. This thing will push up back to 202.50 or something, and then, I don't know, or 202. You are guessing, which no one needs guessing when only 10 cents more to the upside to drop again. I'm starting to really dislike the name Anthony. If somebody else came on here named Anthony, it was not nice either. My goal is not to guess, it's to give you the technical analysis. I'm giving you a technical analysis by guessing, but that's also another way of saying estimating, which there's not really much else you can do in TA. Like, that's what it's designed for. So if that's not your thing, this is not the place for you. You know? There's assumptions happening. That's where the danger is. It's like assuming it has to do something. Assuming this has to go up 10 cents. Assuming it has to go down this much. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if it does, this is a technical breakdown, and I think you're likely getting a retracement. I'm saying if it goes up, we might be in a healthier spot. That's not really guessing. That's saying, like, that's one of two options. That's pretty good. You guys are like, well, that's not helpful. I've already told you what I think about the upward direction on weakness. I don't like it. So, it's not, that's just me. It doesn't mean it can't go up. I'm just saying that's not my preference. If I see something like this, and for the most part, on most time frames, it's looking overcooked, I'm generally not a big fan of that. But that doesn't mean it can't advance again. It just means that, okay, it's overcooked. So you got to be careful. Or not. You know? You don't need me to tell you that it's going up or going down. That's dumb. Just look at the price. It's been going up. So it looks to me like on the 6 minute, it's kind of chilled out a bit. It's not quite as overheated. That's a good thing. That's pretty low time frame. 15 still looks kind of weak to me. It just crossed down. 30 minutes still overbought at territory. I mean, 1 hour was overbought, and it's still overbought. So I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm really not. It's just when people say I'm like guessing, I'm like, well, why are you here? No offense, but if you don't appreciate the estimations from me personally, like, this is not the place to be. I'm okay with the critique, but don't say I'm guessing. That's not really fair. Guessing didn't give me like the 3 targets that we hit last week in sequence. Like, that wasn't guesswork. That was hard TA work. And they were estimations at the end of the day, because nobody can say. Nobody can say. No, not a single person alive can say they know exactly what's going to happen. It's not possible. I hate that though, like that idea that like you're just throwing out answers you don't really know. It's uneducated guesswork. It's just very disrespectful to people who do the work. Yeah, well, maybe this is good because it's holding up into close. I don't know. We'll see. As soon as I say that, it's like red. If it holds up into close, we'll see what happens. Topping action, pullback, topping action. I just don't see why you wouldn't have a pullback here. But again, really a lot of the basis of that is predominantly because we're seeing it's overbought. I mean, the reason that I'm acting skeptical is twofold. One is it's lower indicators are overbought. You already know this. I've been repeating myself like 20 minutes. And then also the volume isn't exactly great. That volume question, I could kind of explain that away because on a first of all, it's like the holiday week. So you could say, well, the volume's low on a holiday week. Yeah, proportionally it would be. I can also explain it by just saying a lot of it's shorts covering. It's not like hardcore buy-ins. Like there's some buy-in happening after the covering. There's a covering and then you have a sell-off and then there's a buy-in and then a covering and then a sell-off and then a buy-in. That could explain why it's very low volume as well, and just kind of naturally allowing it to kind of climb back until it burns out would probably get you back up to this area without much ado. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money if you're just exiting positions. So I already sort of surmised that might happen last week based on the setup for really the last couple weeks. But all last week was amazing because we were hitting those targets, but it was really just using the waves and then using the knowledge on the bottoms, what happens usually, and then ultimately these levels that they drop through. This was an iterative function here, absolutely, from Tuesday all the way through Friday. So that works itself out on the opposite side when it comes back up because those positions are unwound. And I wouldn't say I'm 100% sure of that, but I'm like really pretty darn sure. I'd be like 95%. I bet money that's what's really happening. And the drive in order to get to those low prices and shake out people is very effective. But it's really difficult once you get to the top to kind of make an argument that it needs to somehow continue if you're already in a place of kind of weakness. So I was hoping that we would make this retracement earlier today. When I left the stream, I said I was hoping, in some ways, I was hoping that this would happen, that we would come back down so that end of day today, we would be down here talking about a reversal back to the upside. And these indicators would be at like 50. Oh, I know. I'm just responding. I feel like it's the same like few people every time. And I don't know if they're being serious or they're just trying to mess with me. But I feel the need to respond regardless because one day I'm not going to be doing it, you know? And I don't want people to like take that kind of attitude somewhere else, like beat up on somebody else. It's not really cool. I can't control their actions, I guess, so whatever they do, but this is a creek jump that just needs to have a chill. Feeling like maybe it doesn't come all the way back down to here, but I guess we'll find out. I wonder if the what if this move down matches? Eek, yeah, it does. It's a layup retracement. It's like kind of like you get to a certain level and then you push the price. So you do like one big move and then you push the price farther around like a center and then you do the same big move backward. It's pretty close. I guess one of the other questions I'd have to answer, though, in order to just kind of combat my own ideas, is what happens to these guys if they can't make the advancement? Like if IWM doesn't advance here, this is a bizarre symmetry, isn't it? I've seen this kind of garbage before. Can't remember where exactly, but... So what does that mean? No. Does that mean we're all going to move like this far on the way out? That's where the symmetry kind of ends. I guess it would make sense. Take you back up to 2 on 2. Maybe. Could be the opposite. Ugh. That follows. Because that's a move back to the trend top. I think there's just a lot of changing of positions right now because of the quarter end. It's still early days. That's my suspicion. It's bummed out about this. I really wanted it to just hold and go. Here's an example of a double topping action where it's narrowing the price. You're rising up above overblown indicators. And then you get a big retracement. It's not necessarily bearish, it's just a retracement. It's just an example of like why you would suspect it could possibly go down to a golden pocket. And this is going down to a creek level into the golden pocket area for a retracement. So again, bounced off of that 61865 area. It's not the only place it can bounce, it's just one of many, but it's there, it's sitting right above it, so it's not that far-fetched. They're all good levels. So this is the 382 here, and then right below it, that 572 is the 0.5. I mean, any one of those could act as a decent bounce. All three of these levels are fib levels. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Dang. Yeah, screwing with us is the right way to put it. All right. 60 degrees. Let me go 60 degrees the other way. Just as a waveform, there it is. That's your 60 degree return. If it goes down, looks like it's not holding to me, but who am I? It could hold at 5 or 505. I think this early advancement was more likely going to break down. So a 60 degree return will get you back here by Friday. 464. Is your baloney guy's name Anthony? I don't know, man. Yeah, I think we're just swapping out of positions. That seems likely to me. So there it goes. Well, the sooner it gets to this place, the better. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Just as a matter of principle, there's a lot of places it could stop. And frankly, once you break down, RSI is not the most reliant indicator, because if you break this, you could have a bounce and like a hooking action, and there's still a lot of potential for downside. But it looks like it's turning down. And it just goes to show you. I didn't think it was advancing in a strong way, so Therefore, it has to turn. It has to turn down. No, it doesn't have to turn down. There's a bit of arrogance in it. But the thing is like you can't do analysis unless you're willing to just say things straight out. You have to be willing to take an opposing opinion and say, yeah, I don't agree with the majority. Majority is screaming that it's going to go up, it's finally going to explode, and I'm like sitting here trying to argue about potential downside. It's not going to be a pleasant experience for you, but you just do it. First, because it's the right thing to do, but second, because it's the responsible thing to do in terms of your own positions. And maybe it doesn't go that far, but it's definitely not like coming up here in strength. There needs to be a chill out. So I would say that this region right here, where it found a support earlier, around 5, that's a possible place for support. So before you kind of like throw the book at me and say like, well, great, now we're going to dump. I know. I made a case for it, and that case is settled. I'm done making that case. It is what it is at this point. We'll see what the price action does. I think there's a strong enough case to come back to 464. Unfortunately, I would prefer to stop at 484. So with some strength and some good motion, we don't come back all the way. There's another one over here that I would love to stop at, like right there, and just not go down. Kind of looks like a parallel, doesn't it? It's pretty close. So again, it's not like the end all be all. That's basically a parallel. So it was a trend. So I would much rather stop at 484 for sure. I want to see that price action fulfill a back test, because on the macro, that's a 4-hour moving average. On the macro, that's the middle of this range. Like, it's the most important level we have, in my opinion. The 464 is a previous bottom area, and I don't really think we checked it. And so that's the reason I brought it up before, was because when we came back up, it just sort of passed over it. It didn't seem like we ever came back and back tested it. Like, we back tested closely at the 56 part. We didn't back test here, and I think it acts as a strong indicator, a strong support. So coming all the way back down wouldn't be fun either, but it's there for the taking, and it's a decent retracement. The good news is that the bounce on that move could be potentially very, very high. It takes you back up to the 6s. So if you're looking at this as like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, if you're starting an Elliott wave, it's a really strong wave. Someone mentioned head and shoulder earlier. Yes, it's a head and shoulder to some degree. Most creek crosses are, because of the nature of how they're built. Coming back down to 464 would be like an inverted head and shoulder, because you're coming back to test. I mean, maybe the only issue that I would take with that is you don't really confirm head and shoulders until they're done, which is kind of a bummer, but that's just the way that it is. Like, until it comes back above the neckline, you can't really say it's a head and shoulder. It's more of an estimation of possibility. Yeah, so it looks like I'm going to do a loose estimation. I mean, I don't know. This kind of stuff usually ends up working out. Slightly more than 50%. No, it should be the width of the shoulder, or it should be if it's a head and shoulder, it would be like a full head length, right? There you go. Back up to 616. The thing is like, that's not any different. That's the cool, I mean, it's cool, but it's also kind of weird, but it's one of the cool things about TA is if you manage to get that, that head and shoulder just gives you, straight up just gives you the 1618 on a fib extension. So it's identical. I'm really not really liking how late this is setting up, though. I keep saying the same things. It looks like this is maybe going to set up for like a Monday move if it goes down. Maybe late Friday, but Monday move back up to, I guess it would have to be up to here by Monday in order to go. So here's why I don't like that, because in general, what that means to me is that we're kind of behind the curve, so to speak. We're behind the intersections, and so it's not that can't be an SOS. It's just now you're, instead of being camped above that cross section, you're below the cross section. So instead of being up here, like sooner than later, which is what I was hoping for last week, you're basically like up here, or you're here, right? So like, is it more bearish as a result? Not necessarily. It's just you're below that trend that you want to be above. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow it does just go straight up and all this is out the window anyways. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't know, man. It follows. It just depends on how you define the middle, but it kind of follows that this should have been there on Friday. If you had done the original measurement and you thought that was the center, which is what I thought. But maybe I was just off. Like, I genuinely don't know how to find the middle perfectly. Like, where is it? Where's the center of this move? It could easily be Monday because that's the high here. And then that puts you out into Monday the 8th. If you do like the low here, it would have been way sooner. It would have been like back here. It would have been like today. If you do the middle of the two, which is what I was thinking, it's like Friday. You'd be up there. What about the many times we counted from 430 to 480? Like, so the speed of this is usually just, again, a trajectory thing for me. It's a simple wave structure. Like, there's a certain way it came up. Usually the sell-off's about the same. There's nothing that says that it can't be faster. There's always a steeper trajectory, but I used a steep trajectory. I used this last one right here. I think that's the steepest. And it just suggests that you get there by Friday. But maybe it's some big giant move on Friday, you know? Maybe it is going up Friday. I don't know. My thing that I'm having a lot of trouble with right now is I can't really identify the center, so I'm going to be off by like a day or two. And that stinks, because if you have options contracts, you might have got it right. You may have a $6 options contract, but you're off by like a day, and it's a Friday to a Monday. You're in trouble, you know? It may not matter to some. They're like, well, I don't care. You know, I'm just buying shares. Okay, well, that's fine. All I can say is my original thought was that this would probably be a move faster, accelerate faster, be in there by at least Friday. It's still possible. Maybe we don't get the deep retracement. Maybe we only come back to 487 and we just bounce and just rock it up into Friday, you know? I don't know. Those are bigger questions. We can't predict every little thing. Right now, I think that where it's positioned, it's in a place where it's ready to move, which is good. But we just may need to get one more retreat. Like a 1-2. I mean, that wave 3 was pretty close to right. That's only there if it's a head and shoulder, though. It's not there if it just goes up. I think there's two centers, one for macro, one for micro. Yeah, I just don't know where it is. I can see the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but so then I would say like that probably is close to center. I think where I've got it is as close as I'm going to get it. It's like Monday the 17th right there. That's just the best I can do. I don't know how else I could identify it. Like it just doesn't make. There's no easy way to do it on a wave like that. You just sort of start with sort of basic stuff and then work your way through it and see if it makes sense. The way you scale your chart can kind of affect the way something looks. The reason why it's important, if you guys are wondering why I'm even doing this, is because if, in theory, again, if the waves are symmetrical and they take about the same amount of time from, let's say, A to B to C here, where A is the lower part of the wave, B is the middle, C is the top. In theory, you know, assuming that it gets there and it doesn't break down at some other junction, when we're kind of sitting on one right now, a particular junction, so that could break down. And then you have to think about it maybe a head and shoulder, yada, yada, yada. But assuming it gets there, the wave should complete on time. Like usually it's a fairly symmetrical thing. So even though folks might disagree and they say, why can't it just go straight up? Sometimes it does, and I can't predict that. There's nothing I can do. But usually it makes sense because of the trajectory in, trajectory out matching. So typically the inward trajectory and the outward trajectory match on a sine wave, and that's what we usually see in the market. So did that happen? Yeah, I think so. Once it got to basically 505, if you're looking backwards from 433 up to 505, that's the steepest trajectory right there. We've already sort of followed that one out. So I know I've got like a million lines on here. Here's what I'll do. Let's do like a courtesy kind of clean up here again. You guys are like, all you did was add more? Yeah, pretty much. So in terms of just the wave, so you can do it yourself if you want to do it yourself. You're looking for that middle point to start. We've already identified why we think that's the middle. We talked about the GAN. We talked about how this is the cat ear breakdown trend. Like it's always right in the center. It usually creates a trend. And then from that point forward, you're really just looking at examining the wave and trying to determine where that middle is. I think the middle, again, is right here on Monday the 17th. If I'm wrong, then yeah, it's sufficient to say like, well, I don't know, I might be wrong, and therefore there's not much you can do about that, and just kind of make excuses about it. But if I'm wrong, it's maybe because I don't have the center right. And it could be a little earlier, it could be a little later, because you can tell how scooting this backwards, it's not just left and right. You have to, in order to keep that anchored on the middle, you kind of have to go at that slope down. So if I'm a little off, it could be significant. Like this is a Wednesday finish. If I'm over here, you can see like, oh, that's like a Monday finish. Well, for some people, they're like, I don't care. For other people, they're like, well, that's pretty significant, Booksy, because if I have options contracts, like I don't want to be in a position where I'm in the wrong position at the wrong time, you know, looking for a Friday move and it's really Monday. Bad position to be in, right? So in general, like I think this whole concept applies itself pretty much by itself. You don't have to do much to it. You can just map it out. You could use a GAN box instead of this little box, and that would give you some timing indication of like where things might be happening. Again, just another way to kind of break it down into parts. So bottom, top, sure. This could also give you a sense of maybe if you're right about the wave, like if the wave is fairly symmetrical, like is it close to the 2.5 and the 7.5? Ours looks a little bit tight, like a little off. It could be a little wrong. It looks like extending it to Monday looks better in some regard. In some regard. And that's kind of all you can really do. So as a way of doing more, you could always do another cross trend like here and see if that works. as well. And this is where you can use the GAN box with like all the extra lines and stuff. This definitely works. It's not ineffective. It's a very effective way of doing it. But as you change it, obviously it's not changing all the stuff. So you go in here and you add the angles. It looks like a web. You guys thought I did spider webs. GAN does spider webs like significantly better. But the nice thing about this is it's got all the markers for you. So except for the 50, I would just leave that there. You can use this as a way of understanding like, oh, well, if that's the marker, right? If that's the creek and that was our creek, maybe that's the 50%, in which case this is definitely like a Monday move, and it really looks like it's lined up for that top right here, not the middle point over here. So that puts the height of the wave essentially like right between the 382 and the 25, and right the bottom of the wave right between the 618 and the 75. I feel like that's debatable though, because then you're kind of like skewing the, since this is coming off the top, not through it. It's kind of screwing with it, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. You can really mess with these things. I've mentioned previously that I didn't feel like the curve tool or the wave tool on AMC is very good. I think it's a little messy. There's not much to it as an average. As an averaging device, this is pretty simple. I think what would bother me about the GAN thing is the fact that the center doesn't actually cut through the center of the wave. I kind of want it to go through the center point of the wave, and it doesn't. $497 aftermarket. It's dropping. What move? Let's assume it makes the move. What move? You mean down? If it makes the move back down to the 485, I'm fine. I'm happy with that. That's where we want to build support. I think it's important. But from that point forward, it's like you just got to move up to 6. I mean, you should be able to bounce and have a big SOS. Basically, it's what you see right here. I don't have the markers on here, but every single one of these intersections is basically from the opposite point. You're measuring out to the 75618.5, then to the opposite side. So it's building literally like a little structured web of creeks and junk for you. And they tend to follow pretty well if you got it on point. Well, I'll say this much. The way this is built out makes it seem like 5 is the middle. It's a tricky one. I like this better though. I like because it takes off down here and it breaks down right there. So I think it's right. $5 is the center of the structure. I mean, you better pray it's not a rotation, but even if it was a rotation, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense until you guys are like, what do you mean pray it's not a rotation, Booksy? You threatening me? Well, a rotation would have some kind of a massive shakeout here if it were doing the same thing, but I don't think it's going to do that. It never came back to the middle, so that's why I'm thinking it's probably unlikely. Unless the rotation is just really flat. Possible, I suppose. I don't know if I want to entertain that idea, but I'm just going to flip it around and see. That's why I don't like rotations. It like screws up your bars. Don't work for some reason. Like they don't seem to like be accurate when you flip them over. They always do some weird stretching stuff. Yeah, I mean that would be a rotational symmetry. It's going all the way back down to 420. Booksy said it. I guess if it rotated, it could. This is like an alley-oop to get you back up to the SOS, potentially. Yeah, I wonder. We looked at that before. Doesn't seem like it's a parallel marker. Oh, it could be. Okay. Relevance. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems about right. If I look at the setup by itself, it's a little hard to kind of read it, but going by the divisions here, I would say it looks about right. When I go to the lower portion and look at RSI, 1, 2, 1, 2, it's not really giving me a lot of answers. I don't know. It's a nice enough structure, but I feel like it's missing that level of certainty that I like to see. Well, it looks like it's either Friday or Monday, and most people are going to say it's probably going to be Monday because it's just easier to see it happening on a Monday than a Friday. So So waveforms are difficult in some regard because they're not set in stone in terms of that's a good trajectory right there. Should use that one. This guy. So yeah, waveforms are difficult because it's like the price action can waver away from it. It doesn't have to be built like right on top of it. In some cases, the price action literally looks like it's following a wave, but a lot of times it's not the case. You kind of break through it. This still follows the wave back here. It does, but these moves are kind of whipping around it. And you can see the consolidation into the wave finish here, like the breakdown after this big like whipping action. And arguably, I suppose if I were going to argue about it, I would say like that breakdown level is probably the most significant level. If you're looking at it, measuring it, because that's going to give you the best trajectory possible, I suppose, in terms of timing. If you do it right, the breakdown or like the steeper point of interest. So if I go back and I do this at, let's say 135, I measure it down, and I do negative 135. It's probably going to give you like a really good indicator of probability for the move out. So you can see how that's a strong trend for the move out. Like if I move this to the side, you're like, oh yeah, there it is. You know, I don't think that's an accident, but at the end of the day, like that doesn't mean that you necessarily see every continuation after that point, because while I do think that's usually indicative of where the move goes, you'll also note that once this got to the top, a similar level here at 518, it actually broke down low, then races up. I'm not looking for symmetry. That's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but conceptually, like this already kind of left. I don't know. Maybe I guess I am looking at a little bit like symmetry, because this initial move has like a push up, and then there's a flattened area here. Push up, flatten back, push up. It's like some kind of weird like superhero symbol. Push up, pull back here, push up, flat area. You're like, it's like a head and shoulder. Kind of. It really is similar. Then you would say like whatever the push up to here, no matter what happens, it would probably need to come back down. So what's that level? $489. 489. Pretty close to probably what we had before, with a possible pullback to this region as a first stop. So maybe 489. 489 is a loose estimation. This one actually went lower too, so 485. It's possible. And then we get our push to 550. I don't know if I would mirror it any further. I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think that's typically how this stuff works. Again, you better hope it doesn't, because you're going to break down. Rocket on the other side would be weird. I don't know, that'd be bizarre. I wouldn't want it to do that at that point. I want to find support and then move up. To the top. So I noticed this trajectory earlier when I was doing the GAN stuff. I really like that one. I think it's strong. Probably because it went through the breakdown. I'm not looking at the top. I'm actually looking back here. I'm trying to find like a good average spot. I mean, it still kind of makes it seem like you would go right up this week. That's like Tuesday. It's a tight intersection. I suppose it's possible. This just does a quick back test, and it's so fast. There's no way. No, that's Wednesday. It's not Tuesday. Y'all are like, nah. I mean, maybe. It is what it is if it can get there. Well, if that's the case, then I had it wrong twice. That wouldn't be the middle. It wouldn't be over here, it would be here. Why is that not working? Maybe. Maybe we just tap 489 and then just head on out. Well, I'll fiddle with it. I'll try to have it better by morning if I can. I don't really have anything else to say about GME right now. It's got a gap above, so if it just has a dip back down, we're probably just looking at a simple drop to try to retest the floors again in this lower area. I don't know if it's going to ultimately go to the lows that we talked about or if it's going to find a higher support. Either one would be okay. I don't see any real creek tests, so at this venture, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if it came down real low. It'd be a little weird to do that and not have like some kind of a race back up, but maybe a double bottom, double dip. Yeah. I don't know. So any of that kind of downward movement would have to be extended hours type stuff. You need to see IWM make a similar move back down. Maybe it just comes low and dips low in this range and then pulls back out again. Yeah, I don't know. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me. I'm going to head out. Hope you guys had a good one. Whoever gave me that inverse head and shoulder thing, yeah, appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good one, and I will talk to you later.